Talora Tales. Our party, which is down their beloved and charismatic Thomas, find themselves neck deep, or I guess considering the varying heights of the party, varying levels of deep, in an investigation including Dane, or Adun, Ava's now deceased father, who had been an undercover agent for the Green Hoods and then a butcher of the Dwarven Quarter after some various wife murdering had occurred. Our dramatic and bold heroes go diving into the depths of this mystery and this drama, uncovering a few bits and pieces along the way and meeting some interesting characters. The last little dramatic exposure or discovery being the return back to Sheila at her apartment, the previous handler of Dane when he was a Green Hood and alive, who appeared to have no recollection of the party coming to visit her earlier in the day, presumably having her mind altered or her memories erased in some way, shape, or form. A mysterious, somewhat evil, infernal, dark trail of magic being sensed by Primarch, the somewhat babysitter of the group, or at least as Captain Kirith has imparted. After discovering this, our heroes race back to Captain Kirith to disclose what they had discovered, and decide it's best not to vent all of this in his office, which could potentially be compromised, leading them to return back to the Emberboar Guild, where hopefully less prying eyes and ears can overhear their conversation. As they return, Thomas and Ava, who had spent the day researching various tiefling academia, has now been brought back into the fold. Camus, who was in his office, has also been invited to join in this discussion. As you all find yourself stomping up the somewhat rickety steps of the guild hall, going into the cramped library, settling in at the conference table, which is more or less just a surface that has collected whatever books and journals have not been replaced back on the shelf. It is quite a crowded atmosphere in the moment, as Primarch and Captain Kirith are rather large beings in this somewhat small space. Camus is a little bit more comfortable being a dwelf, and the rest of you finding various positions around the room where you're not stepping on toes or rubbing shoulders with anyone else involved. But it is clear that everyone is somewhat, not on edge, but curious. Captain Kirith being the most, I guess, itching or eager to hear what you have to say. Camus kind of just hanging back in the corner and letting whatever discussion happens. So yeah, I guess as everyone settles in, Kirith would turn to presumably Braynoon, also probably giving a lengthy look over at Primarch, and well, please do disclose what you have discovered.
Well, getting right to it, the brunt of the matter is whatever was happening 20 years ago is still happening today. I'll elaborate on that. After we spoke with you earlier today, we went and spoke with Miss Shayla and Akron, who had a plethora of information, great recollection of what happened during that time as far as we know. Pointed us in the direction of the Butcher's Den, which Quinn had already identified as a potential point of interest. We went and spoke with Shrimp, I suppose is his name there.
I know.
He through a roundabout way ended up giving us a name, and I had the thought to speak with Miss Anacrin before coming to speak with you to see if she had any further information on that. When we arrived at her apartment, she had no recollection of having met with us earlier in the day. At all. As though we were all strangers to her. The attendant to her building seemed not to recognize us either. And now for Quinn and I can understand that, and I'll just point over my shoulder at Primarch. Some of us stand out and are a little bit more memorable than others. In our conversation with Shayla earlier in the day, she mentioned that during her discussions with Dane, that those that he questioned regarding the location of numbers, it seemed as though they had no knowledge of him whatsoever. Now, and then I'm going to glance over at Thomas. My understanding of the arcane is limited. I'm not a wizard. I am married to one, and I am aware of spells to change one's memory, but the power to be able to eradicate is something far beyond my understanding, and this is no offense to Miss Dore, but not something I can recall hearing that often in Central, and we are nowhere near Central at the moment.
Thomas, you're muted.
Yeah, there's nothing that comes to mind. I know that there were some students and professors that had it was theoretical at best, but a long way of saying that it I don't know. It's not common.
Thomas, go ahead and throw me a history and an arcana check. And for those of you who are watching the reactions across the room as everything is being explained, you would notice that at the mention of shrimp pops, Camus would kind of crack a smile and there's a little chuckle. Clearly some sort of dynamic being between those two, but he does get a bit more stern and inquisitive as the depth of what you have uncovered is kind of exposed. What are those rolls?
24 and a 20.
Okay, so 24 for history, 20 for arcana?
Yeah.
So, going off of, again, it's very limited information that you have at this time, just kind of having things been explained to you, so it's a lot of broad strokes and a bit of speculation, and just trying to land somewhere in the realm of where potentially the correct answer might lie. It is incredibly extreme or near the limits of known arcane power to erase people's memories to that extent, to destroy whole sections of their lives, to accurately remove chunks of their current and present and previous interactions with individuals. So you immediately are kind of reaching for the lesser known or the more fantastical elements of your studies or your research or just anything that has been kind of offered up to you. And the first real conclusion you can come to is that it's more than likely not a normal individual. And when I do say that, it's not a dock worker or a farmhand or someone who's just, dabbled in magic, or even someone who's probably gone to school for several years. This would be someone who has spent the vast majority of their life, whether that is hundreds of years or 100 years, focusing purely on perfecting this practice, I suppose, or it is potentially something outside of that, something not within the crafted races or beyond the kind of mortal understanding of individuals. So it could be a lot of different things, but it is very clear that no matter what it actually is, it is something high up the food chain, to put it lightly.
Speaking of high up the food chain, while we're at it, is this something I encountered in my professional history? Because it seems like something they would love.
Give me an insight check real quick.
While that happens, I can't remember, did Primarch share with us what he sensed at the apartment, or?
Yes,
Okay.
he did make a bit of a show of there's something foul within there,
Okay. I would have deferred to him at that point to share that.
17.
Okay. You probably personally didn't handle any of this elixir, but it is known that there are potions or antidotes or vials of a strain of modify memory that is used semi-frequently throughout your profession. It would be used for precisely what you would imagine it would be used for. And so you are aware that that is kind of a common thing in that organization or that side of this story, but something as powerful as altering someone's mind to that extent is not something that at least you were exposed to, or even really heard about occurring in any of the various situations that you were privy to.
Okay.
But as everything is kind of explained, Captain Kirith kind of nodding along and getting whatever bits of information is offered up to him. As it all concludes, he stops for a moment and, well, it does seem that we have found ourselves somewhat in the thick of it, is what I think they say.
That's one way to put it. The name we got from Shrimp. They were told they had a connection to the Green Hoods at the time. I have no idea who this is, but the name was Eamon Aelholm.
1 second. Nathan has misplaced his notes. As you mentioned the name, you would see Captain Kirith kind of like pause, his head kind of cocking to the side ever so slightly. There's obviously a bit of like mental backlogging. It's like, yes, Eamon. I do know of him. Obviously, I don't know everything. I can certainly go drag up his records if need be. If I remember correctly, he was found dead about 15 years ago, down at his, what he would like to call an estate, but was at that point simply a homestead, I suppose. I don't know how he would factor into all of this.
I'm not sure either, only that, at least according to Shrimp, he is directly connected to what occurred with Dane and things during that time.
Well, he was a Green Hood through and through. He was getting close to his age of retiring, I suppose, so it was somewhat unexpected to find him dead. Though I guess now it is questionable if his death was an accident or not, is the first question that arises.
Was
Just keeping.
he ever?
Oh, go ahead.
Was he ever one to consort with beings of the night? The foul presence within the old woman's apartment has me concerned.
Well, as his normal duties, he did have to deal with the ilk of our city, which brings him into contact with many undesirables, but nothing that I am aware of as far as powerful, evil beings of any sort that could achieve something such as this. He, for all intents and purposes, and no slight towards the man, I suppose, was incredibly average.
Sounds like the kind of officer that would get frustrated with his languishing in the ranks and try to find a shortcut.
As you speak, Captain Kirith kind of looks over at you, and there's like chewing over your words, kind of like using it as a filter to repass his memories through once again, and that you might be onto something there, Master Quinn. He was rather bitter about his lack of promotion throughout his years, though he never earned it, so it was fair, but I imagine if you would ask the man, he would say that it wasn't. Perhaps that is a motive.
Just confirming my timelines. So the Butcher events was roughly 20 years ago and had resolved well before Eamon was found. So it's not like it was a A-B. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're roughly his death, as far as you're aware, is like 15 years ago, and the
Right.
butchering events is around 20 years ago. So there's a couple year gap between
Right.
them.
was there any sort of animosity between Aemon and Dane? Was there, I mean, from all accounts, Dane was having little trouble advancing.
Well, Dane wasn't really on my radar until he moved up under me and then found his way into undercover work. And once you get into undercover, it's very limited, the amount of interaction you have with others in our organization. So if there was any animosity, it would have been before I was aware.
What of Aemon's financial situation?
Well, as I somewhat alluded to, he fancied himself an estate owner. He had bought up some cheap real estate down in the Glade back when the council claimed ownership of it, and he was putting the majority of his finances into developing that into a impressive residence, I suppose is how you might put it. It was something that he went on about to great length, and I imagine is something that was a financial burden. It is not unrealistic that if he was frugal, that his salary could have paid for it, but of course, there could have been nefarious means constructing that home.
How did the you mentioned that he bought the land, the property, I'm assuming before the Glade Agreement. How did the Glade Agreement impact that?
That was a rumor that went around after we found him. Some people were saying that due to his attachment to his piece of property, that being notified that he had to hand it over without any sort of compensation, he became despaired and took his own life. We did find him washed up on the shore. The official ruling is that he died in a boating accident, but the accident could have been purposeful, I suppose, if he was so insulted by having to give over his land.
The old boating accident gag.
Quinn, give me a insight check.
24.
All right. Somewhat incredibly perfectly in line with your comment, it's not something that is a sure thing, but it's one of those intuitions that you feel almost instantly as the story is kind of being unraveled. Boating accidents was something that you are very familiar with or can recognize as a pattern in a lot of the dealings of not your direct peers, but kind of the broader coworkers, or what you might call coworkers that you had. The fact that it was a boating accident is somewhat telling, or at least advantageous if there is some sort of cover-up. The body is left to bloat and rot. It's harder to identify. It's hard to investigate due to the wills of nature. So there is that prickle in the back of your mind of like, boating accident. Yeah, okay.
What, and you may not know, but what has happened to that property since his death? I mean, it was handed over, but...
Well, after the Glade Agreement went through, people tried their best to move or sell off their belongings. It's difficult to transport an entire building, so a lot of the investment in that was just discarded, and after the official date of the enactment came through, pillaging, looting, raiding, destruction was rather quick to occur. A lot of the Glade elves found themselves celebrating in various ways. Some of the youth taking it upon themselves to tear down, burn, empty out various homesteads, villages, farms. So I imagine it succumbed to that. As far as I'm aware, there was only a few years between his death and the agreement, so perhaps it was repurchased, but at that time, talks of the agreement would have been pretty public, so I imagine that it was more or less just left to its own devices.
Going back to this, the removal of memory, I have my own theories, but who in Macedora would have access to such, or could have access to such means?
I'm not one to often speculate without any sort of evidence, but of course, all the four families are very wealthy and influential, though they have been a foundation of this city since its inception, so pointing the finger at them has complications. There are individuals, I suppose, in the council at large that might have interest in Macedore's rise or fall, or financial interests, I suppose. We do sit upon the mouth of our glorious river. We do defend our coast from the wilderness to the east. It is a place of great importance, though we are not a thriving metropolis, I suppose. Camus kind of takes this moment to look across all of you, trying to more or less judge where everyone is currently at with all of the larger schemes being thrown around, though Primarch, you would find Camus eventually landing his gaze on you, kind of narrowing his eyes a little bit, and what are you, feeling about all this, our new friend?
The machinations of the elves are primarily their own business. However, for our intent and purposes, we are looking for a solution for the young Ava, I
Yes.
believe.
We lovingly refer to her as Orphan Girl, but,
Just a cough under Brandon's breath of names.
Well, no, yes, of course, it is good to take in those less fortunate. Commendation on you, Guildmaster.
Yes, our hearts are swollen and large and engorged at all times here.
I don't know the entire story for all of this, but the main thing for her is simply knowing the truth that her father was both a good father and a mass murderer.
Some might
Which-
say that those conflict with one another.
Maybe.
It's probably
From
best to at least give her the distinction between mass murderer and serial killer. It
You're-
exists, you know.
It's kind of like trying to settle all the different dynamics at play before he kind of clears his throat. And we should, though I know there are much more important matters, address the Ava that is not in the room. I'm assuming that you all are still intent on keeping this from her until a conclusion has been reached.
If at all possible, that is my intention.
And I assume I know the answer to this question, but I shall ask it all the same. Are you all going to pursue this further?
For myself, at this point, I'm more concerned of I've stepped in something and connected to it, whether I'd like to be or not.
And we are happy to help with things that need helping, but the fact remains, we're members of an adventurers guild. We're beholden to that man there, pointing to Camus, and we need to earn money as well.
Camus kind of lifts an eyebrow up, and I told you all to take a break, and as far as I'm aware, that is precisely what you all are doing.
Breaks cost money.
So far, only Primarchs.
Yeah. Actually, on that comment from Thomas, Primarch would probably look back towards Kirith, and he's not wrong. You know, your investigation has cost me 14 gold already.
My investigation, brother, I fear that you have misplaced the authority in the situation.
Expensive favors for distant relatives.
Getting back to, the bigger problem at hand. Kirith, I have an uncomfortable question for you. If it was revealed that the four families were perhaps not as spotless as they like to appear, what kind of danger would that prove, not just to the city, but to the families themselves?
Though I know my appearance gives off a certain understanding, I'm fully aware that our benevolent overlords aren't exactly pure of heart, though. I do believe strongly in the system that we have put in place. It is why I serve so dutifully, and I uphold the very laws that keep the fabric of our city woven and complete. Going after the families perhaps might be righteous, it might be the correct thing to do, but you also could be compromising a system that is operating, more or less, and disturbing that could have far-reaching complications.
I understand that, and I'm not one to throw accusations without appropriate evidence. However, this entire time I've been looking at this, I haven't been able to shake how quickly, and you've helped to assuage some of it, but how quickly the Venoir family stepped in and how much they potentially interfered with that process. The fact that this investigation has remained unsolved for 2 decades concerns me.
Well, I think to be somewhat clear, I don't think this investigation is unsolved. I just think that it is not known to the public that it has been solved.
I'm not sure I agree with that, but the fact of the matter is there's a number of big unanswered questions about what happened 20 years ago. And the fact that one conversation today led to a piece of information that was directly linked to something that happened this day tells me something is still lingering in this city. It might not be numbers, it's surely not Dane, but someone or something that was active 20 years ago is still in this city interfering with things today.
I feel your desire to pursue it, to identify it, to perhaps even root it out, but the question that I want to pose and make sure that you all understand is interfering or influence being wielded is not always a black and white image. And though you've already expressed concern being brought into this or now a target of some sort, digging deeper would only cement that position.
I don't say anything, but the last, within the last couple of minutes, when the more that the captain talks, I'm just visibly, frowning and scowling more and more.
What I am trying to get to, and I know that we are dealing with a whole host of issues that we must address, is at this point I think it is best for Ava to not be within Messidoria's walls. I know I recommended this early on, and it had some less than desirable responses. But the fact is that until we have a better understanding of this, or we have put this matter to rest, having her there to potentially ignite a more bombastic problem is something I don't want to have lingering in the back of my mind.
For different reasons, I don't disagree. And I have been thinking on that, but it will mean it still needs... I still need to talk it over with Camus, and it will involve a letter or two. But the harder part will be getting Ava to agree. My sister and her family live over in Aldair, on the other side of the continent. It's possible she'd be willing to open her home to Ava for a time. But I still have the same problem I did originally if I'm not just going to throw her out to fend for herself. So whatever happens, she needs to be taken care of.
I don't think that it is unclear that I feel some sort of obligation for her well-being following the end of her father.
I also question if there's not something that could be done for Shayla. At least getting her out of the clutches of whoever's got claws into her at the moment.
That is something that I will look into on my own accord. That is certainly worrying, and it's a bit too close to home, I suppose. Though she's no longer one of us, she was one of us, so I will see what I can do.
Well, and considering yours is one of a few names directly attached to Dane's service in his past capacity, I'd be a little concerned for you as well.
I've proven difficult to remove in the past.
Well, perhaps your memories aren't as difficult to remove as you are.
Well, if I forget your name, please do remind me. Camus at this point kind of looks everyone over once again. Well, this has been incredibly insightful. May I suggest a leisurely activity for your current vacation? Unless Admiral, Captain, Team Leader has a better idea.
I've got plenty of ideas, I'm not sure they're better.
Guildmaster, I actually need to have a conversation with you when you have a chance.
I appear to be free now.
Wonderful. Kind of glancing around at everyone else. Well, as I understand, my brother had been sent to you for a period of 2 years. However, given his present situation, that obligation is left unfulfilled.
Actually, in
willing-
the contract, it clearly does state that your contract is fulfilled upon death.
Thank you, Thomas.
Either
Sorry.
way, it is but one of many blights upon the honor of my family to leave things undone. I wish to offer my services to join your looking around at the shabbiness of the guild's organization and put right what was left.
Appreciate the offer, but absolutely fucking not.
That
Good
was
talk.
less of a request.
As I was saying, it sounds as though we are fishing for whatever is coming next, and while I don't have all the puzzle pieces that you all have collected, my curiosity is piqued, I suppose I should say, about this... What the fuck was his name? Eamon, right? Some asshole who is obsessed with building a fucking castle in the middle of nowhere. There's probably something there. That's my bet.
I had the same thought.
Kirith, where is the thing? Kirith kind of looks over at Camus with a little... I believe he referred to it as, what was its name? Horn Hill View. It's about a day's ride south of here, along the coast. So it is not too far of a journey, I suppose. Well, good. You all need some fucking fresh air anyway.
Look, can we at least get provisions for the day? Like,
I'm not whipping you out of the building, Thomas.
no, at this point, we would have already accepted another contract, and I know that you all have everything you need, but the materials to further my studies are quite expensive.
Thomas, I'm going to teach you a very valuable life lesson here from one successful adventurer to another. Greedy people very much enjoy their things, and when their things are threatened, they very much enjoy hiding those things. Perhaps in this husk or whatever the fuck is still left there, under some stone, some torch that you pull, some lever that you find. Maybe he dug a hole in the middle of a field and beneath a willow tree to return one rainy day. There might be something
Yes,
to find.
I'm quite capable of following your line of logic, if you want to call it that. Then, certainly, since this is not a sanctioned contract, we should be able to keep all of what we find this time.
I am not concerned in the least with your vacation activities and whatever financial boons come from it. Or you could always rip the scales off of our new friend here.
I would not recommend it.
Captain Kirith just kind of slowly nods. So I take it that you all are pursuing this further?
Much as I did when the captain first mentioned it, I just chuckle.
I'm not one to leave questions unanswered. I hope that if you learn anything in the meantime, be willing to share that, and we'll let you know if we find anything as well.
I will certainly make sure the street of knowledge is shared both ways. Primarch, are you agreeable to continuing with this organization for the meantime?
I have nothing better to do.
And I'll take your silence as assuming they did not get up to any nefarious activities during your time with them.
Despite the affiliations we may have made, no, nothing particularly.
Well, then it appears that we have covered everything that I am aware of, and I shall take the opportunity to again express my appreciation for you all going where I may not and attempting to find some closure to this somewhat infuriating web of annoyances.
I appreciate your willingness to allow us to.
I will double check my knowledge on Eamon when I return back to the HQ and see if there's any further information that I can offer up. I imagine you all are not leaving at this very moment, so I can send that by messenger.
I seem to recall it was like 8 or 9 at night at this point.
It's like late.
Yeah,
evening
it's
right now.
it's evening. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then tomorrow it is.
Well, good luck, gentlemen, and Camus, it is always a pleasure. Camus. Yeah. Always. Kira would then scoot his chair back, kind of give you all a little light bow, and then go to leave the room, leaving you with your charismatic guild leader. Well, really fucking stepped in shit, huh?
Who knew kobolds could be quite so infuriating?
Well, just remember the rules and don't fucking die. It's in the rules, so you'll remember them.
Well, then
Well-
I suppose I shall bid y'all a good night.
I mean, you're welcome to sleep in your brother's bed if you want.
Camus's eyes
Has it-
kind of narrow over at Thomas.
Have you washed it since?
No, I
will pass, but thank you.
okay.
Well, good talk.
I guess Primarch will head back to his inn.
And break. Quick DM question. Before I, go writing a letter and send it off. Is there, and like understanding it would be more costly. Is there any form of communication more quick that I could get a message to my sister? Is letter pretty much it at this point?
Yes and no. There are like the extreme ends of there are somewhat
Right.
established like teleportation circles and whatnot scattered across Talora. So that could be leveraged, but that's incredibly
Oh yeah,
expensive
that's
for a
I don't
letter.
got the gold for that.
Yeah. Besides that, I guess you could like expedite it by like trying to hire a more expedient messenger.
Okay.
But besides that, it's mostly foot traffic or crow or raven or whatever.
I mean,
various...
not that message across the continent is going to be message to Central, but yeah. Okay, then that's pretty much my evening activity. I'm going to write the letter and then plan to send it out first thing in the morning.
Okay. Well, after our powwow in the guild hall, is there any activities the party immediately get up to besides Braynoon doing your letter and Primarch returning to your inn?
I don't remember if this was mentioned. Is Ayla in?
Yeah, so Ayla was down basically at her desk with distracting Ava while you all were meeting.
Oh yeah, right. You said that. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna go down and just not really try to initiate conversation. Just sort of, how's it going? You're here late. Hope everything's good.
Dude, she's not interested. Give it up.
It would be
aftercare.
It would be probably one of the most awkward interactions you've had with Ayla thus far, especially with Ava kind of perched over on one of the couches in the common area, just like watching you both go back and forth.
Actually, that's why I feel like it's a good time. I'm not trying to be alone.
There's a witness.
Yeah, but like any attempt you have would be met with like, oh yes, it's a comfortable day, yes, and oh, it's probably about time I should be leaving, yes, of course. How was your day? Oh, very okay, yes. Like that level of just kind of replying but not really.
With virtually the same attitude as he has always displayed, as I have always displayed, I wanted to make sure that you knew. I was not trying to put you on blast in that little powwow. I didn't even know the extent to which it was your responsibility. I think it got away from us for a minute.
Well, the response I've been told to give you with my training is every new group has its growing pains and emotional outlashes is something to expect, but personally, it's alright. You all seem like decent people, and I know that you didn't mean to, I suppose, cause me any harm, though it is good of you to hold me accountable to my duties. It is what I'm here for, so.
You're very gracious.
Well, it might not seem like it, but sometimes I do hold your life in my hands, so it is something I should take more seriously.
Well, I'll say goodnight.
Hopefully, no one followed me home.
I don't really respond other than just sort of smirk and walk away.
So, Thomas, is there anything you're doing after the meeting disperses?
Yeah. I'm playing around with, in the course of the last couple of weeks, that my Magic 8-Ball, we're going to call it that.
Yeah, fucking copyright strike.
We'll come up with a better name.
Ball of Divination?
Ball of Divination, yeah. It's bugging me that at its core, it's a gimmick. Mm-hmm. And so I've been trying to work with it to make it a little more useful. And as we became a little more experienced and got a little bit more knowledge, aka the level up, it has now become the focus of the spell Augury. And And so I'd be basically trying to create like a double-blind experiment and casting augury as a ritual and seeing what the results were, whether it was good or bad. Just toiling away in my little corner, but that's what I'm doing for tonight.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Keep that in mind. But as everyone goes about their various evening activities, I imagine you all settle back into your various accommodations. Primarch, is your, I guess, intention to get up early with your routine and return to the guild hall, or do you have other things outside of that?
Actually, yes, he did have one plan. Conquest and glory don't come cheap. And so, after his morning routine, he would probably find a nice square with his alms box and preach of the glories of Nosaruk, and vanquishing the darkness requires patronage from all good people willing, and see if he can rattle up a small sum.
Give me a religion check and a persuasion check.
Oh, not performance?
Okay, that's not too bad. That's a 15 on religion and a 19 on persuasion.
Okay. So as you strike out into the early hours of the dawn, really catching the growing hum of the city as it prepares for another day, you are met with the somewhat striking sight that the city is known for of the dawn light being cast through the tree and blanketing the urban landscape in this kind of rainbowy spectrum of colors. It certainly does help almost ignite your presence in some way as the light bounces off of your scales and your armor and your various equipment that I imagine many are somewhat interested in, besides being interested in spotting a dragon kind that they are unfamiliar with. Your preachings aren't exactly the demographic in this current place, though some of the, I guess, messaging or intentions of it are appreciated. Fighting off the darkness is a somewhat repetitive theme of Messidore, as they are a constant defense against the wilderness or the evil of the known world of Talora, so that kind of helps resonate you with the people. Then the combination of, again, your somewhat uniqueness and your strange charisma, you do grow maybe a small handful of a crowd that then attract a bit more of the passerbys. People will stop and linger for 5 or 10 minutes and kind of listening to what you have to say, and then throw you a few coins here and there. We'll go with 1 copper piece, 1 silver piece, and 5 gold pieces.
Oh. Let's see if Shrimp Pop can weasel his way out of taking all my money again.
But
Okay.
Is anyone else actively pursuing something early in the morning?
Yeah, the only 2 things, like, I'd get up my normal time, go send my letter to my sister. Basic context of the letter is, we took a job, girl was orphaned, Messidore is not safe for her, needs a place to stay, blah, 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 without giving any specifics, but...
Hey, what's up, sis? Long time no see.
I visited there on my way here, so it's been like 6 weeks. But, plus the whatever. And then I stopped by and pay my guild dues for the month.
Okay.
My other guild dues.
Yeah. Brayden is a man of many guilds, many talents. But anything else in the morning to put on the books? All right. So as everybody finds their way to the guild hall, and we'll place this perhaps around maybe 8 in the morning, you all are either preparing for your adventure coming up or waiting for some sort of message from Captain Kirith if more information is available. Actually, let me go ahead and move you back to Go Hall. Yeah. Thank you, roll 20. That's exactly what I wanted. There we go. And then I'm just going to go ahead and throw you all in the common room because it will be easier. All right. So as it is fairly early and everybody is going about their preparations, usually most patrons or customers or anyone for that matter just kind of barges in, or at least welcomes himself into the guild hall due to it being a guild hall. But distinctly and somewhat oddly, there is a knock on the door and then a wait versus someone entering. Ayla kind of like looking up from her desk and looking over at you, and did someone get that?
I will stand up and kind of, just because he's still very much in conspiracy, tuck one of my hand axe jacket before I go, and it's like, typical, and I open the door a bit and see who it is.
So as you go to open the door, you would be met with a elderly looking elven man who in all appearances is incredibly plain and very aggressively average. His, hair is well kept, he's well kept, he looks like he has lived the most bland life possible. He is dressed in very clearly acceptable, somewhat higher society clothing, but it's not to an excess of like showing exuberance of wealth, just a clear distinction of this is a professional individual kind of extruding that energy. There is absolutely no emotion or expression in his eyes or really on his features except this like thin, practiced, very cold smile, I suppose is the best way to describe it. And as you open up the door, he would look down and make eye contact with you and... Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How can we be of assistance?
This is the Emberborg Guild, correct?
As?
Well, I am in search of the group that they call the Ember Four, which, if I am to believe the description, you are a member of.
Sorry, I'm finding this very funny. I am.
Wonderful. May I ask your name, sir?
It is common courtesy for the stranger wishing to be invited into someone's to introduce them.
That is very true. I am trying to at least identify you before I offer up, but my name is Taurus Carquin. It is a pleasure to meet you, sir. And he would extend his hand out towards you.
Yeah, trying and failing to just hide any. There's just like this slight closing of the eyes, and I'll take the Braynoon Drudenath. It's a pleasure, I suppose, and I'll open the door fully and motion him in. I caught Carquin. What was the first name?
Taurus, Toross. But as you welcome him in, he would move in this distinctly stiff fashion. Stiff, but somehow still graceful as he is. His posture is very straight, his steps are very deliberate, but there's no slouching or casualness to him. There is just this aggressive, like, almost robotic movements to his various attentions, I suppose. But he would make himself known and then move through the door, look over all of you in the common area, also looking over at Ayla and bowing his head. Well, hello everybody, my name is Taurus Carquin. I have been told that you are the Ember Four. It is a pleasure to meet you all, though I don't know a couple of you.
I'll stand up and say, I'm Quinlan. Good to meet you, sir.
Quinlan, it's good. I do know your name, sir. It's very nice to attach a name to the face.
I'm Thomas.
Yes, Thomas, I have heard a great deal about you. Very nice to meet you. He would then turn his gaze over to Primarch, and I imagine you are the brother of Svenjamin?
Indeed, Primarch.
My deepest condolences to you. I appreciate your brother beyond what you could comprehend.
And
Not
before...
just-
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, finish.
Not a sentiment I often hear. Thank you.
Well,
Somewhat distrusting.
your brother is certainly a hero of Messidore, so it is honorable to honor him.
And before Ava can say anything, I will... this is Ava. She's staying with us time being. Is this a business-related conversation?
Yes, I would either like to speak with you if you are an authority, or whoever might be above you.
And I'm going to look to Ayla. I suppose that would be Camus. Where upstairs, or should I just take him to Camus's office?
Ayla kind of looks back and forth between you two, and then over to the new individual. And may I ask, what your purpose of your visit is? The Carquin family has sent me as a representative to offer patronage to the Emberboar Guild. And Ayla kind of looks over at you all and back at him, and I imagine then, yes, you would want to speak with Camus, though, it is rather early, and she would look over at you, Braynu, and be like, would you like to bring him upstairs?
That's fine, unless you prefer that I speak with Camus first.
So, would you like to join me in our kitchen for some tea?
Of course. It's a great time for tea, isn't it? It's the early morning, so yes, that does sound fabulous.
I make it with an extra kick in the morning. I can also make coffee if you prefer that, but you look more the tea type.
Tea will do fine.
While Thomas is doing this, I'm just going to... I can't... My token. I'm just going to move to the door.
Mhm.
I am going to knock, but not wait for anything before I step in and behind me.
Okay. So I move you in there. There. Is Quinn or Primarch making any sort of motion at this point?
I'll sit back down and wait for
All right.
somebody else to put their foot in their mouth.
Oh, are you, why can I, oh, I
Yeah,
know. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Sorry.
I was like, nope, I assume it was a layer thing.
There we go. All right.
I can move too.
There we go. So, Braynoon, as you make your way into Camus's office, who he is, like, actively sitting up as you open the door, and he has, like, one eye peered
And
open.
I'm
like,
just doing this at the door. Taurus Carquin is here to speak with you about the Carquin family offering patronage to the guild. Thomas is currently making him tea. That was my first thought when I opened the door.
Is it just the one?
Unless there's an entourage outside I didn't see. I didn't check. I was caught a little off guard.
All right. Buy me some time. Yeah, go tee him up or whatever the fuck.
Do you wish to meet with him upstairs? As I kind of like look around the room.
Like, Go tidy it up first and then bring him up there.
Can do.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna kind of walk by and just give a nod to Thomas and like using our hand signal just to slow down. And I'm gonna look. Go ahead.
And then the really remarkable thing about these tea leaves is that they've actually come with me all the way from across from Central City, but I don't just use them by themselves. I combine them with the local flora, and it creates quite a pleasant blend.
Oh, that is quite the extraordinary discovery. I have been told that you are the academic of the group, and it seems you are proving that.
If not the academic, I certainly have the best taste in tea.
Well, we shall see if that is true, but I assume it is.
And I'm just
Now
gonna
wait.
kind of
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Now I'm locked in Camus's office.
sorry.
But I'm just gonna walk out into the and I'm gonna kind of look at the room, and I'm gonna look at Ayla,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm also gonna look at Ava. It's like, Camus would like to meet with him in the library. He asked that we tidy it up a bit. Can I get some help with that?
Ayla kind of looks over at Ava. Ava kind of looks over at Braynu. She's like, do I get paid?
And I will just kind of 2 silver.
4.
2. Don't barter with a dwarf.
3, and I'll clean your room.
Mine's the cleanest part of that room.
It's a thought that counts.
Then you should do it graciously. 2 silver upstairs now.
Fucking dwarfs. Fucking. And she would go to follow you upstairs. Okay.
And we will tidy.
Quinn and Primark, still any activity, gentlemen?
Just watching and waiting.
Yeah, turning to Quinn, he just... Is it often this excitable?
Yeah.
Well, not so bad then.
Especially if you know where to be watching.
Then I shall take a lesson from you, good sir. Then kind of lean back further into the couch. Or chair? I don't know what I'm on.
Yeah, a bench.
Piece of
thing.
furniture.
Yeah. So as perhaps like 10 or 15 minutes passes, Braynoon and Ava are upstairs in the library, rapidly trying to organize everything, or at least clear the table enough for it to be somewhat presentable. Thomas, you are engaged with the thrilling conversation with Taurus of tea and how pleasant it tastes and the various accents that it has within its flavor. Eventually, your tea-ing would be interrupted by Camus as he steps up to the kitchen door and looks like he did his best to try and tidy himself up, but very much still appears as Camus and pokes his head around the corner. Our conference room is upstairs, sir, if you would be so kind. I am Camus, the guildmaster. Taurus kind of very gently sets his teacup down and looks over. Oh, it is a pleasure to meet you. I have heard your name before. It is, the honor. Of course, I shall follow you up. Thomas, do you mind if I take my tea with me?
Of course. It's all yours.
Would you, be so kind to gather your companions?
Yes. Shall we meet you in the office immediately or after some time?
He kind of looks over at Camus and he was like, yeah, just bring him up, I suppose.
On it.
So Taurus would then move up with Camus, going to the wonderful little tiny ass fucking table you guys have set up. Appreciating the somewhat tidy improvement.
I would give Ava her 2 silver and go help Ayla downstairs, please.
Yeah, I imagine she'd be set up. And then Thomas, do you collect your companions?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. So back in the conference room we go. Isn't this an exciting episode? So as you all find yourself in a very
This is some
familiar
dangerous
setting,
shit happens in conference rooms.
it is far less of a crowd as Taurus, while being somewhat tall and elven, takes up a far less footprint than Captain Kirith does. He very politely sits in a corner chair, holding his cup very, like, politely, almost at, like, chest level, but never actually making any motion to drink from it as he's waiting for everyone to kind of accumulate into the space around him before Camus kind of double checks and taps his hands a little idly on the table and, well, welcome. Thank you. It has been quite the warm welcome indeed. I don't know how relevant this conversation is for you. I did not catch your name, sir, directing to Primarch.
As I stated earlier, Primarch.
Did you? Am I an idiot? I might have missed that. Okay,
I don't
that's
recall. I was already in panic mode at that.
fine. It's okay. Everyone's mind's being wiped anyway, so.
Fucking knew it.
I have been sent from the family, the Coquin family, which I imagine you all are familiar with, yes? Camus kind of. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yes, well, it has become recognized by the family that you all have done some fabulous work for our various interests. First, very heroically dispatching the ogres that had stolen our cider for Passover, and then most recently saving our poor Lindis from a certainly gruesome fate, and neither of those heroic activities has been forgotten about. So it has been bestowed upon me to express our undying gratitude to the Ember 4 and the Ember Boar and the astounding accomplishments you all have achieved. Camus just kind of.
Primarch would give a small clap to them because, you know, he's got no reason to disbelieve any of that, so well done.
The majority of the share of that acclaim, as it pertains to the Carquins, actually lies with your brother.
Yes, it has become known to us that Svenjamin was quite the hero during the moments leading up to Lindis's capture. So I, again, will take the time to express my undying gratitude to your late brother, Master Primarch. The reason that I am here for you today, and I will try not to take up more of your time than necessary, is the family has found it within their interest to reward you all with your astonishing accomplishments with a bit of financial boon. All right, that sounds acceptable. It kind of like looks around at all of you, just honestly, just as caught off guard as the rest of you, I suppose, before kind of turning back to Taurus. What exactly, does that mean in plain terms? Well, as you know, the Bloody Heart Guild is sponsored by the Shadowhounds, and that has been a very, how would you say it, rewarding experience for them, I should say. So the Coquins are looking to secure their own heroes.
Just the slightest little like cough grunt from Bray Noon.
Must be one of those fancy new messaging stones. But as like everyone again is just like waiting for the other foot to fall, he like recognizes the silence and well, the actual offer that I have been told to present you all with is we would like to renovate your accommodations, at least the common room accommodations is I guess what you might refer to as, and put our family sigil upon your wall somewhere to recognize our patronage and hopefully work very closely together whenever the need arises for heroes such as yourself.
I'm just gonna kind of blank-faced turn to look to Camus. And I'll kind of look back to forgive us that, and I'll point to Thomas, myself, and Quinn. We're relatively new to all this, so I defer to our guildmaster on most of this. I assume it's, and I'm trying my best not to stick my foot in. As an adventuring guild, we have the freedom to accept the contracts we wish to accept, and it would be my assumption that the Carquins have no intention of interfering with that, but I don't really know the ins and outs of this sort of contractual agreement.
It's also true that the events that precipitated your recognition left their mark on us all, and it is gratifying but hard to feel celebratory. Maybe you could explain what you know about the agreement that our friendly competition has with their patron.
Well, the Bloody Hearts and the Shadowhounds are a bit more involved than what we are prepared to offer you, but to help make the terms clear, we are not interested in anything that imposes on your freedom, as that is something I hear is essential for your line of work. We just would prefer some preference, perhaps, whenever the need arises for one of our family members or one of our interests to require your services. If there is a reason that cannot be achieved, perhaps we can reach an understanding, but overall I don't think that it will box you in. Camus kind of trying to get the energy or the reaction from all of you before he speaks, like...
As I have to take a call. I'll be back in about 3 minutes.
Alright. Mute your mic. No, fuck. I want to mute him real quick. Alright. Anyway, what was I saying?
Camus.
Yeah. Like, that, sounds fine so far. Yeah, please do tell us about, what you know about the Bloody Hearts and their agreement. And Taurus kind of, like, quirks his head a little bit, like, seeming a little bit caught off guard that Camus is not privy to this, and... Well, as far as my knowledge extends, one of their, further descendants is part of their guild, so they work very closely with them, and once their family member rose up in the ranks, they began to sponsor various events and equipment and training and other needs that arise for your line of work. I hear that counseling and therapy is something that is quite often sought after events that you face, which is quite the financial burden, I imagine. So it is a very symbiotic relationship, I think is how you would express it.
Truly, it is much cheaper to pray.
I want to. I'm gonna go into the pause menu and check the codex for what I know about the Carquins. Whether we're about to get in bed with a crime family here.
Yeah, go ahead, roll me. Do history with advantage.
Well, from what
All
we've
right,
heard,
that's a net 20 plus whatever my bonus is, 21.
All right. Let me.
User finished with action.
Nope. Okay. As you troll the the back of your bun. Oh, is he back?
Right.
Are you back? Okay, cool. As you troll the back of your mind for information on the Carquins, also kind of feeding off of what you've kind of accumulated by actually working with them thus far. They are the family that sponsor the coupling that you attended with Sven and Ayla. That's kind of like their, not claim to fame, but at least kind of a larger vibe check from them, I suppose, is they're very much built on this mantra or this motto, I suppose, that, you know, the strength and unity and power of the people come from, you know, love and kinship and that bond that we all share, and very much kind of recycling that energy to push them forward in various election cycles and that kind of thing, and buy goodwill with the people. As far as their, I guess, like interests or their activities or what their family kind of controls, it's kind of a mixture of everything. They are just one of the 4 large political powerhouses in the city of Messidore. You would probably know, were the previous representatives leading up to the Venoirs taking over about 60-ish years ago. So they aren't currently at like the height or the peak of their power, but they are one of the more competitive ones as far as you're aware. The heads of the family, like the power couple of the family, as far as, again, appearances and public perception and understanding and knowledge, are the like epitome of loving one another till the end and using that bond to achieve all things and make the city great again, and all this wonderful, colorful flavoring, not with any sort of connection to potentially meta reasoning. But yeah. But that would be your overall understanding of them. They're like, without giving you a whole history lesson on the Carquin family, they are just one of the 4. There is white and black in their history. Overall, they're probably some shade of light gray. As far as most people are aware, they are just one of the many descendants of Amrumbel that is trying to make the city a safer place and keep the evil at bay. But a quick side note is it's probably pretty easy for Quinn to identify that this relationship or this offering is going to be beneficial for them as well as you. It's not some sort of act of charity. So
What was their position on the Glade Agreement?
They probably
To the
were
extent
against
of what
it.
is known.
Yeah, like their general public statements would probably fall along the lines of all creatures of the elven race or the elven kind should be of one versus these very distinct lines, and we should not separate ourselves with borders, so they should be wrapped up into the council as all other elves should be, was probably the message that they hit upon, so.
So
Okay.
anti-Glade agreement, but hey, let's find a better solution.
Yeah. Very much like, not to give the wrong impression, but when you're in that like dystopian sci-fi game and it's like, we all need to
Right.
come together for a brighter future. That's like the general message they would have been putting out. So. But as all of that is kind of being mulled over, Taurus, looks over y'all again. I imagine this seems acceptable to you all, or perhaps we can have a bit of discourse on things that might be troubling for you. Camus kind of, anything troubling for you?
Forgive me, my years of commission work are coming out. Before we fully agree, though I believe amenable to this sort of relationship, would it be possible to get a written set of terms and agreements as to what the expectations are on both sides, rather than just a verbal contract.
Yes, I imagine that would follow whatever sort of agreement we come to, and of course various discussion and back and forth is welcomed from the family.
And I'll just kind of place my hand on Camus's shoulder. It's the sort of thing a guildmaster lives for.
Ah, yes. My quill hand has been getting incredibly rusty as of late. Taurus kind of, well, I'm always happy to assist in any way that I can. If you need help putting your thoughts to paper, we can find someone that is suitable. Camus, like, I can write, it's just I fucking hate writing. Sir Coquin, would you excuse us for a moment, please? Refresh your tea, I suppose. Taurus kind of like, certainly. I understand that group decisions are the best way to move forward, so I shall await your answer downstairs. And he gets up from his seat, gives you all a very deliberate bow of his head, and then makes his way out of the room. As he leaves, Camus turns to you and, well, fuck.
This appears to be quite a beneficial agreement for y'all.
It's not just me that I'm a little bit concerned that,
No, it's not just you. That's...
Also, he's fucking creepy.
I think he's rather nice.
Creepy patrons are the best kind of patrons.
Maybe in your line of work. I mean, this isn't what I was planning for this morning.
Oh, it's what I had on my agenda.
Clearly, I'm just glad you're wearing pants.
Primarch frowns at that. Is that a common problem?
No, it is not. Well, it's supposed that this is the time for me to fulfill my leadership role. Fuck. I'll be blunt. It would look incredibly nice on a report to send back to the fuckheads above me of the heroes of my guild have earned patronage, so that might just be the answer right there.
Probably worth an advancement point or two, wouldn't you think?
Thomas, you've become rather blunt. I think you've been spending too much time with Braynoon.
No. I don't think that's it at all. It's just become clear that mincing words and wasting time has less value than I thought it once did.
Well, perhaps our new financial injection, as everyone likes to fucking call it, is enough to pay for some extra training for you all or something that tickles your ass cheeks.
Maybe we could start with a bed suitable for a draconic prince. Since the one in there is obviously not worthy.
I am certain after living with my brother, you understand my reservations.
I'm certain of one thing. You're not giving him the credit that he's due, and the man that you think you know was not the one that I lived with for the last 4 years, and if you had bothered to visit him even once, maybe you would know that. But a nice bed, I'm sure, would be suitable.
Well, this has been a great talk. Let me go discuss terms with our future patron. You all have a lot to do. I will not keep you. Good luck.
Thank you, Camus. Don't sell our souls for this.
What about a foot, a hand? Ah, don't worry. I know these motherfuckers. And then he would leave. And presumably from the noises you can hear, he would lead your new patron to his office and then continue discussions there as you all are left to your own devices.
Shall we make our way to Hornhill View before we get any visitors?
That seems prudent.
Alright. So as the Ember Four prepare and take their leave of the guild hall, setting off to hopefully find something at their destination, we shall take our 10-minute break. So as the party set off from Messidore, heading south, also having been given somewhat vague directions to find this estate, as it's been put, you go back into the glade that you are now somewhat familiar with, adventuring this direction a fair few times during your time here at the Ember Boar, besides our dear tag-along Primarch. You travel further south as the day progresses, the sun rising higher in the sky, reaching noon and then beginning to descend. You grow closer and closer to the various landmarks you've been told to look out for. The coast off to your left, slowly kind of coming and going and bringing that ocean breeze that then kind of ascends up towards the mountain range off to your west. It is probably around, we'll say 5 in the afternoon. The light is just beginning to start to change hue as you spot, Rob, mute your mic, as you spot this collection of clearly man-made silhouettes kind of rising off the coastline. The brief description you've kind of been given about, the Hornhill View is that it was basically there's a plot of land that Aemon, where the fuck is his name?
Aemon.
Yes. I've been reading too much Game of Thrones, so Aemon is like all fucking in there. But anyway, Aemon had begun to construct what was going to be some sort of grand estate or palace, as he had put it, but had really only achieved getting it to perhaps maybe like a sizable home before the Glade Agreement and everything kind of came to a head. But it is set directly on the coastline, perhaps only maybe 100 feet or so away from the actual waterfront, and there was a somewhat lengthy dock that extends out far into the water that has lost some of its structural integrity over the years that it's now been left to rot. As you are approaching this, pretty much a husk of some sort of shelter or residence, it is clear that walls have been torn down, the roof is caved in, vegetation has started to retake the area all around it. There seemingly at some point has been a fire set at some point of the building, and a vast majority of it has been turned to ash and cinder. Probably Quinn would be the first to recognize it, or at least know perhaps where it comes from, but the equivalent of what I guess you would say is Glade Elf graffiti is kind of plastered all over the various parts of this building, sigils that represent different herds and shepherds and factions and organizations within the culture that is constantly roaming this land. It is pretty easy to discern that perhaps some of the youth of this interesting people have come here to vent some frustration and tear down some walls and feel as though they are accomplishing something or taking back their land. A quick glance over the scene as you all grow closer also indicates that this place has been the site of potentially a few different strange occurrences. There are old, worn, broken arrows jutting out of walls. There are rusted and almost reclaimed swords scattered across the ground in a few different places. combat and death and blood has certainly been spilled here before, as a lot of the various shelters that were left after the Glade Agreement kind of saw this cycle throughout their descent, as various vagabonds and bandits and goblins and whatnot would find shelter there and then move on, or perhaps come to blows with inside them. Eventually, though, the party does arrive on the scene. It is probably set on less than 2 acres of like reasonable land, as far as you can tell, like what the property might have actually been. The house itself is probably only about 60 to 70 feet wide, in a more or less kind of square fashion. It did appear to be a 2-story building at one point, though the second story has now been mostly compromised, and the dock lays vacant of any sort of ship or vessel or boat that once had been there. So that is the scene that you walk in on. Don't all speak at once.
Sorry, I was finishing my notes. So it is like we're full into evening at this point.
Yeah.
And I'll just kind of look around the group. Don't know whether we should try to use one of the remnants as a camp, or also don't know what we'll find in there, and I'm keen to be found.
Master Braino and I am happy to scout the perimeter and see if anything seems amiss.
There's just kind of a curious look at. Thank you, I appreciate that. There's no sign that like there's any current inhabitants of any sort.
And nothing obvious like a smoke
Okay.
trail or a clear path coming in and out.
So I'll just kind of look to the group. We could. I didn't get in my. So there was the main house. Were there any other? There were a couple other smaller buildings or remnants of buildings, or
There are perhaps like that are far less vertical than they used to be, like sheds and like little workshops that were kind of on the fringes of the property that were probably being used to help in construction. But besides that, it really is more the main building and then the dock kind of going off.
I'm going to I'll cast Detect Magic and meander around with
Okay.
a larger group.
Go ahead, throw me an investigation while you're doing that.
we could clear the house and make camp in there, or we just set up out here and treat it as though the buildings aren't there.
I'm going to I use one of my portents. 17 plus
Okay.
7 is a 24.
All right. Is this just outside the building, or are you all going inside too?
I don't think that decision has been reached yet.
I was planning on at least poking my head inside.
Mhm. Well, I guess detect magic is what, 10 minutes? Or is it a minute?
It's 10 minutes,
Yeah.
but I cast it ritualistically, so you know.
So it took 10 minutes to cast.
Yeah.
Took 10 minutes to cast, and then it lasts for 10 minutes.
Yeah. I'm
and
just
so we
trying to
can-
figure out where you all are going
Mhm.
during this 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think Primarch would at least poke ahead inside, listen out for any noises, see if anything's moving
Go ahead, throw
around.
me a perception check.
17.
Okay. As you come up to one of the more compromised walls, where basically you can just more or less lean the majority of your torso through one of the holes and glance inside, you stop for a moment, listen, wait, kind of observe to see if anything moves about or is shifted. You would hear perhaps like the scuttering of small rodents, just like being disturbed by your presence, and then like the flapping of a bird leaving some nest up on like the higher part of the building, but nothing that would cause you any sort of alarm. No shuffling or snapping of twigs or readying of swords or muttering of words. Just kind of general abandoned ambient noise.
Then, as I guess Thomas is finishing up his ritual, Primarch would come back. Appears abandoned. No signs of current life.
My mind just kind of flashes back to the under the city and
Young Thomas, I think it should be safe for you, but I will accompany you as you walk.
As you wish.
So as the brave pair go around the perimeter of the property and the outside of the building and then eventually make their way inside, it is, again, just kind of a somewhat, I don't want to say tranquil atmosphere, but just a peaceful one. There's not anything actively occurring. This space or building has been lost to time and reclaimed by nature to a fair extent. So you're stepping on grass more often than not, occasionally on some sort of stone slab that was the floor at some point. Thomas, as you are both using your actual vision and then any sort of magical essence that comes up due to your ritual casting, you search and analyze and scan the various potential hiding spots that might be in a place such as this, looking at the floor and the walls and the ceiling and just trying to see if anything stands out to you. There is a somewhat, what's the word I'm looking for? Mostly standing chimney on like the eastern side of the building that certainly has seen its fair share of damage and is not nearly as high as it used to be, but the first about 10 or 15 feet of it has remained intact, just a few of the stones kind of being dislodged. As you are kind of looking it up and down, almost just giving it a glance, not really expecting any sort of response from it, there is this slight little sliver of a sheen escaping from between two of the, stone bricks that make up the construction, and it is clearly some sort of response to the detect magic that you are using, but it's very difficult, even with, spying that amongst the natural perception you have, to tell what it is. It's maybe about 8 feet off the ground, so you could pretty realistically reach up and try and fiddle with it.
Okay. I will just for a little bit of flavor. I will cast floating disc, and then step up on top of that so now instead of fiddling up with something 8 feet above me, I'm looking even with it more or less.
Mm-hmm.
And investigate what I saw.
As you get closer, it is, how's best to describe this? The stone in question, this kind of singular block that magical essence is kind of escaping out of one end of, as you go to try and shift it or move it or pull it from the chimney itself, it doesn't really want to budge, and there really isn't an easy way to kind of get your hand either in or around the cracks surrounding it. But as you are investigating it and kind of exploring it and perhaps, tapping it or such, you come to the conclusion that it is more hollow than a stone brick should be, and kind of giving it maybe even a harder rap or tap. It is clearly full of something. There's some sort of content inside this hollowed out stone that is perhaps the thing giving off the magical energy.
Primarch, go fetch Quinn for me, please.
Certainly. And I'll march over to Quinn. Master Quinlan, young Thomas needs assistance.
Of course.
I'll follow along as well.
So,
And mentioning to Brayden as he walks up, quite the efficient group. I'm surprised.
We're getting our stride. We're figuring out.
So, Quinn, I found what appears to be some sort of safe box. But I figure at this point, it's either magical or there's something magical inside of it. And I think now dealing with hidden boxes of these sort might fall more into your expertise than mine. I'll reach a hand down and help boost him up to the lip.
So I'm gonna take my my toolkit out and sort of like take it out of my backpack, drop the backpack, and then sort of find somewhere on me to shove it where it'll stay, and get up to this interesting little spot. And I want to check for traps, of course, but also for signs of how this may have been manipulated in the past.
Okay.
Scratches, wear marks.
Yeah, throw me an investigation, sir.
That's going to be an 11.
Okay. There isn't really a whole lot to easily identify about this particular stone slab. It is designed and appears precisely as a blank piece of stone that just makes up part of the chimney. It is easily identifiable, at the very least, that it is genuinely either cemented or plastered in place like any of the other bricks, so it doesn't look like it's designed to be shifted or moved or pulled out of its position. It's been set there and supposed to be set there. There is no evidence or signs that you can spy of it being messed with as far as like another party or individual attempting to access it. It just seems to be residing there as many years have kind of taken its toll.
So without looking down, still just sort of inspecting it and poking at it. Thomas, this doesn't seem like a slip. I don't see any signs that it moves or is removed, at least from here.
So when it was the glow that was coming that I could see, was it coming from within it? Like an object in it was given the glow, or the actual box itself?
There more or less there's like a crack or a fissure, I guess might be the term to use, in the stone that is actually allowing the contents or the interior of it to just eke out a little bit of the magical energy that you've spotted.
So, I don't know if you can't figure out the catch to it. As best as I can figure, the enclosure isn't magical. And you see this little crack here. It's emitting light from my magical detection from inside of there. So if you could break it, I don't know. Like, sometimes I know a safe, you can finesse it open, and sometimes you just...
So, well, before we do anything else like that just yet, do you know of spells, wards, things that would involve protecting the whole building or a room by putting a spell component in the
No,
structure at the
no.
corner.
Quite often, those are on doorways, around the perimeter. For a building, certainly it would need to be more than one spell. This is almost certainly a magical object that's hidden in this hidden box.
All right, it's prejudice of me, and still like up on the wall, I'm gonna turn and I can't do it, but Quinn can. Do like a teeth whistle. To get Brainoon's attention and sort of beckon to him.
I'll kind of look up from wherever Primarch and I are standing. Yes?
You may not know anything at all about this, and I'm really sorry if that's the case, but if we go smashing at this brick, are we going to bring the wall down?
Well, I'm blacksmith, structural engineer, but...
You're a dwarven blacksmith.
Reinforcing stereotypes, baby.
But with my dwarven eyes, I'll take a look at the wall.
Give me
I see.
give me investigation and insight.
You said just investigation, or was there a second?
Investigation and insight.
Oh, okay.
Are you not the variant with stone sense?
So, stone cunning technically only works on history checks when I'm looking at stone.
Ah.
So he could probably identify the stone.
Right, yeah.
Ah, yes, that's granite with a mixture of shale.
All right.
I
well,
see it all the time upon my navy vessels.
Right. Yeah, my wooden ships that I served on. Investigation is... Oh, I'm better at that than I thought. A 19,
Mhm.
and insight is a 15.
Okay. As you, the third individual, investigate this stone brick, you give it a thorough go as well, and you spot the crack that is there, which is probably the best way to gain entrance to it forcibly if that is the route you are taking. You again try to shift it or manipulate it or see if it perhaps is a load-bearing brick, which supposedly they all are. The one thing, perhaps due to your vertical challenge, there is like a brick 4 or 5 layers beneath it that is missing, and you start trying to like cram your face up against it, try and peer up, and then try and like look around the various different entryways that are within this chimney. And while there isn't anything else that hasn't already been described, one thing you do notice is that there's a distinct lack of soot or smoke within the interior of the chimney, which you would assume would be there otherwise. And then probably another thing to gain from your insight is if the stone is hollow and you do force your entry into it, there is the fear of perhaps compromising the chimney, but there also is the fear of compromising whatever may be inside of it.
So just to confirm, from the stone that's missing, I can see into the chimney stack itself, and there's no sign that... No immediate sign that anything had ever actually been burned in this chimney, or at least I'm not seeing the signs.
Yeah.
And how high off the ground did you say this?
It's about 8 feet off the ground.
Okay. Which even for an elf is high.
Well, we got the disc.
Oh yeah, no, I'm just thinking
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
who this was built for. And the impression, because I was only half paying attention, is that there's almost like a fascia stone on top of the chimney. Like there's some sort of gap there that doesn't make sense for a chimney.
No, there is a stone brick that Thomas identified.
Okay, so it's just the one brick that is.
And then there's a crack in it that is allowing some sort of magical essence to leak out of it. But otherwise, it appears to be a normal stone brick that is somewhat hollow.
I mean,
I think Primarch would just call out, is there a way to dislodge it?
Yeah, that's the piece I was. So, otherwise, this stone looks as though it's part of, or at least cemented to the other stones around it. It's
yeah, any sort of like the normal bondage that's being used
Right.
for the other bricks is around this one as well.
The fact that this chimney looks like it's never been used. Is the opening to the chimney itself, is that like I could crawl into the chimney?
You could probably squeeze in there, but due to your width, it might be difficult. But it is a pretty sizable space, both the entrance to it and the width of the interior as well.
The whole fact that this thing doesn't appear as though it's ever actually, for someone like a fireplace is something that's a centerpiece in any sort. So, given what we've been told, it's probably an entire waste of time. I want to inspect this thing on the inside.
Okay.
I want to squeeze in there and just something's off about this thing.
As you watch your valiant companion Braynoon wiggle and squeeze and shove himself into the kind of, again, broader opening, but for a dwarf rather tight, and then crane his head around the corner and looking up, it is a little bit difficult to discern, though there's enough light being kind of cast by the missing bricks in the stack, I suppose. But again, about 8 feet up, where you roughly identify the stone from the other side, you see again that there's no soot or ash or any evidence of fire, but there is a kind of flatter surface that appears to be around where that stone would be. And as you're kind of peering and using the combination of your dark vision and the light provided, there is some sort of slot or hole or something up there that is clearly placed in the hollowed out stone.
Okay. I'm just trying to theater of mind all this. And so what I'm seeing is a void in the stone, not necessarily something
basically there's
else
a perfectly flat surface among the naturally kind of rough texture of the other stones around it, and within that perfectly flat surface there's more or less what looks like a keyhole in it.
Gotcha. So I'm gonna wriggle my way back out, and I'm gonna look at Quinn. It's kind of a tight fit, but it seems like what you might be looking for is actually inside, not outside. Couldn't get the greatest look at it, but it seems to be something to fiddle with.
I was afraid you were going to say that. All right.
You're thinner than I am, it's fine.
It is easier for Quinn to get inside, though it is a very cramped space to work with. I'm assuming you are attempting to bring your tools in with you, sir?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Go ahead and throw me an acrobatics check.
And Quinn, do you want Mr. Sparkles in there? Let me know if you do.
I'm good right now. 21.
Okay. So it's easy enough for you to shimmy around and kind of using your shoulders to help shift you up, and then pinning your pressure on the walls to keep you vertical as you slowly begin to make your way up to the 8 feet, which seems rather arduous in the interior. Those of you on the outside seeing little glimpses of Quinn's body as little gaps in the stone allow you to see his foot, where he places his hand and pulls himself up. But eventually you come eye level with again this kind of flat surface with again what appears to be a keyhole set inside of it.
So sort of wedging myself in with this rock climbers sort of positioning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna redo the search that I did outside. I think I redid it exactly 11.
Okay. I mean, yeah, given all the descriptions already offered, it's basically the same description. As far as you can tell, there's no other strange oddity to this, except that it is appearing to be a different thing, supposedly, or assumedly being a door or a hinge or a opening of some sort. Hence the keyhole. But there doesn't appear to be a bomb strapped to it or anything of that nature. So.
All right, I guess I'll try to pick the keyhole.
Go for it, sir. So that is a dex check with advantage or with your proficiency modifier?
No, I think it's
Okay.
dex and proficiency
Mm-hmm.
with the thieves' tools.
Yeah.
Hey, 22.
Nice. So as you get into your position and then have to like find the awkward way that your limbs can actually reach, kind of having to do this whole like face scrunching maneuver, you do begin the process of attempting to pick the lock, and your initial impression is that it's a pretty well built and somewhat preventative measure of getting inside of this container, though you are deft enough and determined enough and perhaps annoyed enough to continue to latch the bobbies or pins or whatever the fuck how locks work in place as you continue to delve deeper. Eventually you do hear that final click that gives you that little rush of like, yeah. And as you do, you pull your tools out and you can see already that the entire like face of the flat surface has already kind of like shifted away from the stone, as if like that whole flat part comes away from where the stone has been set.
Will it fall, or does it seem to be on a hinge of some kind if I start to...
It seems to have like begun the process of falling, but got like caught on the rocks around it. So assumedly when you mess with it, you're just pulling like the whole face of this thing off.
Okay, so it's just in by the latch.
Mhm.
All right. All right, I'm handing down the cover.
So as you go to remove the faceplate of this container, you are immediately met with two distinct leather pouches kind of rolling out of the container that were assumedly like lumped up against the face, I suppose. And one kind of hits your chest and then rolls down and begins to descend down the chimney, and you can hear the familiar clattering of like metallic objects within it before it hits the ground with a heavy thud. The second one doing much the same. There are two more leather pouches within the container, a glass vial that is full of some strange white liquid, and then also a unrecognizable bracer or bracelet or wristband of some sort that appears to be very well made and clearly somewhat intricately designed, that is resting kind of on top of the last two pouches.
Sorry, that this thing's actually full of stuff. I'm gonna hand down a bunch of stuff. Coming to ya.
Primarch will try and squeeze in what he can to...
Through the conveyor belt system.
Yeah.
Okay. So as you move the objects out carefully and then assumedly eventually retrieve Quint from the chimney, unless he is chosen to reside there for the rest of his days, you would discover that each of the pouches contains 100 gold pieces exactly. The, I guess, Thomas, probably still at this point, your detect magic is nearing its end, I suppose.
Given in the interim, I would just go ahead and refresh that.
Yeah, either way, I'd say that it's active at this point, that you can use it. Both the circlet and the vial of mysterious white liquid gives off some sort of magical energy, so that would catch your eye, I suppose, but that would be the contents of the stone, along with, as you are messing with the vial, you realize that what appears to have been a label, or what you thought was a label at first, is actually a handwritten note. And as you go to like actually grab the vial, it slips out and around, and you see that there is writing upon it. Whoever has it, I'll go ahead and reveal that to you, and one of you lovely individuals can read it for us. There you go. That should appear on your screen.
No, I don't have it yet. Oh wait. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I had to scroll down.
Mhm.
I'll read it.
All right.
If you find this, I'm not dead. I don't know how, but something is coming. The veiled blades have sunk their claws. They keep asking. He goes by Gorez. I'm sorry. Signed, Amen.
And on the other side of this piece of paper, you would find the writing, just two simple words saying gentle wave.
Well, the plot thickens.
The magical item was the vial.
The vial and the bracer/bracelet. If this is kind, I can give you the schools of magic, but it might not be kind. I would hearken to guess that the bracelet is evocation, and the vial probably also evocation.
Okay.
Actually, Thomas and Primark, give me a history check.
A 10.
11.
All right. At the moment, with all the other various strings pulling at your attention, neither of you are able to easily recognize what this item might be. Oh, and for those of you who were not following, it's a total of 400 gold pieces between the 4 separate pouches.
And you said the two words on the back were Dane and Green?
Gentle wave, but close.
Gentle wave. It was a G word. Well, this shall be handy, I suspect. Pointing at the potion.
Sorry, I was transcribing the note. What was the the school of magic for the potion, or did we identify the potion?
Well, so they're both
Evocation.
evocation, yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I don't wish to be rude, but Master Quinlan, have you heard of the Veiled Blades?
I used to be one.
Then to be slightly suspicious, this would not be your handiwork then.
No, not a lot of interdepartmental communication in the Blades. I should have known that there was no way they didn't have a finger in this pie, but this is trouble.
Do you know who the Gorez is?
DM, what do you say?
Throw me a history with disadvantage.
He gets a
I fucking hate you.
he gets a 10 with whatever his
Thomas is suddenly struck by a bolt of lightning.
That's an 11.
The chimney collapses on top.
Sorry, what was the total?
11.
11. Wait, you tanked him?
I figure it was statistically better than whatever he was going to roll with advantage
Oh, okay.
or disadvantage.
Disadvantage, yeah.
Okay.
Which it was. I would have gotten a 2 otherwise. So
Okay.
Yes, so
11's
11's better than 3.
Yeah. Again, hearkening back to the time right before joining the guild or entering into the guild when you were attempting to kind of get a feel for the city. You know that you've heard this name. You can't quite place like where it was said or the context in which it was said. It was almost like the general energy that you could remember is someone kind of whispering it, much like a boogeyman or a threat or, a warning or a tale of that sort of like, don't do that, or, the X will get you, that kind of context.
Well, whoever or whatever it is, it's scary even in spy circles, but I don't have any specifics. It could be a person, it could be a cell, it could be a protocol. It's very difficult to say. Let me see that bracer.
All yours.
Insignia, markings, something that I saw somebody wearing one time.
I'm gonna go with no. As far as you can tell, this just looks like a highly valuable piece of either jewelry or equipment or treasure that has been tucked away with the other valuables in this safe spot or this isolated spot. Whether it's connected to anything or any indication that it's connected to anything isn't clear physically on it.
Sort of holding it up and looking at Thomas. Are you able to identify this?
Still haven't learned that one.
All right, I put it on.
Okay. Wait, do you have to attune to it? I guess not. Can you use a magical item you have not identified and doesn't require attunement?
I guess I'm counting on it being indicative, like we'll get a feeling indicative of something that I'll either feel more dexterous or
give me a Arcana check with disadvantage.
With what kind?
Disadvantage, sorry.
Uh, 7.
Roll me a 1d4.
4.
Thomas, roll me a dexterity saving throw.
Let's see.
I have to know which number was he hits a wall and not remember.
It should be okay. It's a 18.
Okay. Quinn, as you're putting it on, very much to like focus on identifying it, or at least identifying the sensation that it gives you when you do put it on, it slips over your wrist and then snugly fits to you, as many magical items do. And then almost instantaneously, as your, I guess, energy within you is kind of being put in this to explore what it is, this large scorching ray erupts from the bracelet, shooting out over your hand in front of you. Thomas, being the one who had just been identifying it with you or looking at it with you, is lit up almost instantly by the light of this ray as he quickly leaps out of the way, kind of trembling over the various loose flagstones and boards as you nearly blast your companion, though the effect does somewhat dissipate rather quickly as you are left just looking at your hand with the bracelet wrapped around it.
Sorry. That's really nice though. Not.
Did I? So when I saw that,
at this
as I'm
point,
leaping,
it's easy enough
yeah.
to know it's a circlet of blasting is what you could identify it as, which casts the scorching ray spell.
Is it?
You mean a bracelet of blasting? Circlets or headgear?
Oh yeah, sorry, yes.
That's great. Are you okay?
I mean, it was a learning experience.
Not really a tool of a spy. So,
Well, anyone who wants to kill somebody could use that. So it's a multi-purpose tool.
I go to take it off.
Okay, you would be able to.
I was totally waiting for the nope.
Right?
And then your
Like-
heart begins to beat faster and you
I was-
sweat, and suddenly...
It took everything in my ability because I played another game where I had to cut a party member's arm off because of a cursed bracer.
And now let it be known, this is going in the recording. Nathan is benevolent and has given a non-cursed magical item to the party.
we just don't
That
know
way-
it's cursed yet.
It's
took
not
a
cursed
gamble.
yet.
I took a gamble that it would have been easier to find if it were
Right.
So yeah, I hand it back over and before anyone asks, I could get someone's attention with the Voids to ask them about this, but expect it to be like a deal with a devil if they even want to play. Under the circumstances, they may not.
Well, if they're connected to the goings on of whatever happened with Dane, I suspect they're not going to be too ready to step out and reveal that. However, it seems that Eamon, at least, I'm just kind of looking at it, it's like, doesn't seem he had the boating accident that everyone believes he did.
Also, it means that the body that they recovered is
Someone else.
well.
And the glade is a big place to disappear into if you need to.
Is there perhaps a town around called Gentle Wave?
Everyone give me a history check.
Well, that's a natural one.
19.
27.
Thank you,
Natural
Thomas,
20.
because I think I only got like a 13.
Mhm.
My first natural 20.
Thomas, as you are a sponge of knowledge, just absorbing whatever comes your way, whether that be the flavors of teas, the intricacies of the arcane, the practices of the thread, or very particular brands of wine that rest on the shelf of a establishment that you frequent, I suppose. You would remember right in the back of your memory, there is a brand of wine very prevalent in Messidore called the Gentle Wave, and it hails from, believe it or not, the Gentle Wave Winery, which is pretty close to Messidore as far as you're aware. It's somewhere north of it within the Evasal Council territory. The claim to fame for the Gentle Wave wine is that it is both the grapes that it is pressed from is added to by the gentle breeze of the sea coming from the bay and the fresh fertile soil coming from the valley, and it is the perfect pairing and mixture of the two different cultures or regions. So that would be what you remember.
Yeah, I would pass that all on with after that dissertation, I'd pass it on and then look over it by Mark.
The only reason I know so much about that particular bottle of wine is that was the bottle that me and your brother drank when he took me out to dinner.
That sounds like a most enjoyable dinner then.
Quite was.
I'm hoping I'm coming through because I don't know. Okay. My Discord is glitching out because it shows both Seth and I is muted. Just to confirm, the Gentle Wave is written in the same hand and it's not like just the label wine bottle. Okay. Well, this was more productive of an evening than I planned. I'd still like to look through this place a bit more thoroughly in the morning. And it's a little late to be heading back to Missadore now, so... But perhaps on the way back to Missadore, Quinn, you can enlighten us more into who these veiled blades are.
I'll do my best.
Well, don't see a reason to camp outside of this ruin, so...
So, setting up...
Braino's gonna start making camp.
Yeah. Are we doing the same watch rotation with Primarch replacing Benjamin's role?
I was about to volunteer for first watch, so
There would be
you were muted,
just...
Rob.
Just we are before going on any sort of watch going forward, if I've got the spell slot for it, or actually it's a ritual, so if I've got the 10 minutes for it, I'm putting an alarm and I'm gonna run that thread all the way around the camp such that I can.
We will have 2 of those, so...
Is there a time on that?
It's 8 hours, so
8 hours.
So let's see here. Why don't we redo our watch rotation to make best use of that? I'll take first watch, and you take third watch, and both of us cast an alarm should always keep it through the night. Fair enough?
I also, for mine, since you choose, I will, unless stated otherwise, always be doing an audible alarm, so everyone will hear it if it goes off, not just me, so...
Okay.
then I guess Primarch can take last watch.
Okay. So the watches are now Thomas, Quinn, Braynoon, Primarch. Alright. Good stuff. Everyone throw me a quick perception check, though. I imagine with the alarm spell now a established thing, this will be less prevalent.
6. I'm sleeping really, really comfortably now.
22.
4.
18.
Okay. Quinn, you doing anything in particular on your watch?
Oh, God. No, just staying alert.
Okay. As what you're now second? Yeah. As evening turns to night and you wake up to keep your watch over the camp, feeling a bit more comfortable now that there's a second redundancy set in place, you glance over the glade and kind of, I don't know, settle or enjoy the general atmosphere going on around you. Again, the coast being very nearby, so that constant kind of white noise of the waves coming and going from the coast is constantly rolling in the background. You are assumedly close enough to either the wall or some sort of portal or whatnot to see outside in the glade to keep watch. And you would see first the little prickles or sparkles of what you have already identified as the glade elves keeping track of various comings and goings of people within their land. So it almost brings you kind of a strange third layer of comfort that you are being watched by them, the ever-present eye of these strange people constantly upon you. Then as the night fully settles, and there's this like weird kind of strange emptiness for a while, the somewhat initially alarming image of what looks like rising embers catches your attention, being fairly far away, maybe even talking about a mile's distance, as you are picking out just these little tiny pinpricks of light as they begin to grow and expand and rise higher in the air. And then you begin, as you watch this for a few moments, recognizing this kind of flickering in and out, this sporadic glowing and dimming of these lights that you then recognize are more or less lightning bugs, these enlarged lightning bugs that are kind of buzzing and flying around the glade, but it creates this weird shifting cloud, this mesmerizing light, almost like lazy, lingering fireworks for a moment. And it's just this somewhat odd moment to catch as you're just on your watch by yourself. No one to keep company as you just watch this kind of coming and going and rising and falling and growing and shrinking before eventually they drift far enough out of your perception that you can no longer enjoy the view. And then you die.
Delayed curse on the bracer.
But any reaction to that, sir? I'm assuming not.
No, just taking it in.
No. So, as the rest of the watches go uneventful, and you all rise upon another day, early morning, I'm assuming setting off towards Messidori?
First, before we leave in the daylight, I just want to do another once through of everything. And then actually, before we leave, I'm going to burn one of my freshly opened spell slots, and I want to cast Alarm again, this time with the mental trigger, specifically around the fireplace area, because it's 20 by, I think it's a 20 by 20 foot square, so I can't do the entire house. But with the mental alarm, that I can still sense it up to a mile away if it gets interrupted. So
Okay. Go ahead and throw me another investigation check as you're preparing to leave and searching.
I rolled decently. Investigation +3, that is a 19.
Okay, give me one moment. First, let me get this out of the way. You're almost like reduced to the point of like kicking things around at this point, as you have scanned things and lifted things and ducked through things. You're just kind of really grasping at straws, just seeing if anything kind of occurs or pops up. You find this like rotted out board that is clearly was part of the like upstairs construction and then had fallen and rotted and then turned into almost kind of like a mulchy consistency that you give a kind of swift kick to, kind of scattering it, a bunch of splinters going all over the place. But as you're about ready to like take another step and just glancing at whatever you reveal, you see probably maybe like the familiar texture of like canvas or burlap, which, you know, catches your attention a little bit. As you begin trying to like shove a bit of the debris away, you start to reveal a painting or a portrait that clearly is mostly disintegrated and in very rough shape, but there's enough remnants of it to know that it once depicted somebody in that kind of traditional, almost like proud pose that you would do for having a portrait done of yourself. And while the majority of it is obscured and a lot of the face is rotted away, you can begin to make out like the silhouettes and the faded colors of some sort of male face. Elven male face, as one of the ears is distinctly kind of pointed. There is a fair amount of green beneath him, which probably indicates that this is probably a portrait of Aemon, is a pretty easy assumption to make, though it doesn't really give you a lot to go off of as the features are mostly gone at this point.
Assuming I can without completely destroying it, I want just roll up at least that piece and take it with us. See if maybe I can do something with it later.
Okay. Well, and that's probably the last interesting thing you could potentially find as you all set off. So I imagine, Quinn, is this your time to divulge the everything I know about Veil Blades to the party speech?
Everything I know as far as they know.
But I mean, yeah, like, what is the extent in which you bring them to speed?
The Veil Blades are the spy agency of Messidori. always keep a robust curtain of plausible deniability between the official arms of the council and the government, but to put it one way, they're always busy. They operate in cells, and the cells don't necessarily know anything about what each other is doing, what their goals or tasks are. All that is for the very top leadership to coordinate and worry about. The cells, you could almost think of as being like guilds within the league. So I don't know what cell this is. It wasn't mine. At least to the best of my knowledge. Let's just say that that's a blanket statement on everything that I say about the Veiled Blades, okay? Because I was one, but that doesn't mean they told me a fraction of everything.
I was a naval sailor. I knew what was happening on the ship, but I didn't know what was happening through the fleet, so I understand that. You mentioned it's Musadori's spy agent. That to say it's a official organization, or is it merely an organization who has availed themselves of information and therefore created informs?
I would say it's official in the sense that it is sanctioned, it is known, it is given silent assent for intents and purposes. It's a government agency, just not one that you'll ever get them to admit to. Before the Glade Agreement, one of the things that the Blades were responsible for, at least in my cell, was to further the interests of Mesodore in the wider Glade region. This often meant reconnaissance, infiltration, destabilization of nomad tribes that were particularly loud opposition, removal of key troublesome figures, so I'm not the least bit surprised that a Veiled Blades cell would be involved if we've uncovered some kind of wider conspiracy with this, whatever this was that happened with Dane.
So, a quick point of order. If whoever tasked the Veil Blades take care of Aben found out that we were poking around in his death, how likely would they be to divert resources to us? And B, how fucked would we be if that were to happen?
Well, as far as I know, they have plenty of resources. They're not lacking for anything they need.
Is,
Partially because if they need something badly enough, they don't ask.
We've seen that.
I mean, really, this is an intriguing puzzle. I must admit that as an intellectual, I love a challenge, but is it really worth it? Is it really our business even?
I there's no part of this that is beneath the attention of the Blades. If they're involved, then you don't have to worry about them checking up on us or more. They will. And as for the level of fuckedness, I'm not going to sit here and say that I was the best spy in the Blades. There are those who were in there twice as long, thrice as long, with who knows how big of body counts.
And perhaps the one reassurance we have is that at least so far, though, to whatever it is we're into, aren't so much being disappeared as having their memories erased.
I would rather be killed.
If we have something going for us, it's that they would want to keep it clean. The Blades benefit greatly from the general public thinking that it's all a big conspiracy theory.
We should, so far, in my opinion, and I'm open to changing it, but we should just let them think they did a good job and go about becoming better adventurer guild people.
I myself am loath to garner the attention of a shadow organization. However, we did pilfer this man's home. If he is there at the Gentle Wave winery, perhaps we can return some of this to him.
I'm casting my vote with Camus. We can't let this guy in. That's a decision that can be made at a later time. Right now, I understand your concerns, Thomas, and if you wish to leave it here, you are welcome to do so. This is not a contract, it's not anything that is required of you by the guild. But my motivation is the fact that there's a girl's life in more ways than she even knows. And
I agree with that to a degree, but she was safe before all this, and they were quite happy to let her grow up in whatever way she saw fit after killing her father. And now we're by poking around, and we might be what kills her.
They have no reason to come after her at this juncture.
That you know of.
Well, I would know better than you.
And again, you are a very small part of a large organization, and you have no idea, as smart as you might be, what the unforeseen circumstances will be. And if there's anything I can say with certainty is that there will be unforeseen circumstances.
I don't disagree, but whatever they might be, we've set it in motion already. They know
And
that we're...
they would also know if we quit. Something to consider before just blindly going forward on another quest to God knows what. For what?
Though Thomas makes a good point. Given your knowledge of the blades, what are the odds that Dane could have escaped to Yevaloon a mere week's journey away from Ray, and them not be aware of it?
None.
So they were fine letting him live until kobolds took him out.
Something that might be worth considering is that he had his memory wiped.
It's also true.
He may have worn that cloak because he liked it, not knowing where it came from, or remembering anything about the mess that he left back home. If he was a patsy, that would be quite a tidy package. The blades don't kill for sport.
No. If they did, they would be less scary. They apparently kill for very high levels of government. And if there's anything I'm more scared of than anything in this world, it's bureaucracy.
Yeah, that's fair.
Then
Well-
perhaps is this something for the good captain to note? I'll take that as a note then.
I'm ambivalent about the captain. Everybody knows that. That's obvious. But it's not my opinion talking necessarily when I say that the blades are out of the Hood's league.
What are the odds that wait, hold on.
There's too many A's.
Seriously, your dang elf names are gonna kill me.
Aemon,
Yes, it is
Adun,
Aemon. Okay,
Dane.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's... I was mixing Aemon. So, at least based on this note, it would seem as though Aemon avoided confrontation with the blades. And as far as we know, he wasn't anything more than an average Green Hood. So either they know more about this and don't care, or their information network has some gaps. Which of those two situations seems more possible?
Yeah, between those two, the first one.
In my time with the Navy, I followed orders because they were orders, knowing that even if there was blowback, I was following the orders given to me by someone more than I was. it wouldn't be implausible that the Blades would allow that sort of blowback on those given the orders in order to protect themselves as an organization. They've established themselves as a necessary part of the operation of this region. Would it be incorrect to state that they see themselves more important than the head families themselves?
At least as important, I would say. They might consider themselves the fifth family.
By their own admission, they keep a buffer. And one could presume that they've protected themselves by keeping records of the orders they were given.
Not that I ever saw them, but I wouldn't
But
put
you
anything past
are also lower down the food chain.
That's right.
Ultimately, again, even if the Veiled Blades were the ones that did take the action, they weren't the ones making the decision to take the action. They're protected in this. And not to mention, due to the separation of individuals, you couldn't take the entire organization down as it is.
Then do we leave sleeping bears to lie?
Well, I think the point that Braynon is making is that if they're involved, it's not for the fun of it. Their number one motivation would be that they were given a directive.
Really, guys, what's in it for us? Why? We find out all the secrets. Then what? Do we get a bonus? Is that another AP? Do we get better contracts?
Personally, they have already expressed that I'm not going to get to just walk away. Might be nice to have something on them for a change.
When this all started, my intention was never to involve anyone but myself. I was in search of answers for questions that Ava doesn't know she has yet. So as I said, you are welcome to wash your hands of this and walk away. And I will make sure that, as best I can, it does not interfere with my ability to work as a member of the Ember 4, but this is not something I'm going to drop.
Even if it kills us. Wonderful. I guess the decision's been made for us then.
I'm with Braynoon, but
Of course you are.
if you like, I'll let them know you are a conscientious objector.
Yeah, that will do wonders to insert witty comment here.
Thomas, I understand the hesitation to
You
seek battle. I do.
First of all, you know nothing about me. Second of all, I was not talking to you.
I sort of
thank you.
cut eyes at Braynoon at that, like,
No, that is fair. I am not part of your group. I shall take point then, and he'll walk a little bit faster to the head of the line, keeping a vigilant eye out.
Single tear.
Oh, and don't you three now know more about the Veiled Blades than some of the officials in the government of Messidori. So,
Don't
keep,
go advertising what we know.
keep that in mind. Yeah.
The
I
fact
mean,
that
this particular trail we're following is not the only one that leads to losing fingers and toes and tongues.
the fact of the matter is, the Blades have already proven they're willing to interfere in our official duties as members of the guild by forcing Quinlan to do their deeds. Even if we drop this, they're not going away. And honestly, I'd rather they see a bigger threat than just someone they can push around.
I would rather them not see us as a threat at all. And if they want to use Quinlan for whatever attachments that he has in the past, then that is his baggage to deal with. And should be our choice whether we help with it or not. But this is...
And
as
I've
far as
given
I
you
can-
the choice to walk away from it.
If it is one person, that's a solitary problem that he can deal with. If we're a group, then the entire group is at stake, whether one of us is a conscientious objector or not. We either all go or we don't.
And I'd rather have someone watching my back than leaving me out stranded.
I would not leave you stranded. I would, of course, watch your back.
But you just said that you have no problem leaving Quinlan stranded.
I would help him with his individual problems. We're creating a different group problem by involving ourselves in something that is, quite frankly, none of our business.
Well, if you knew anything about me, you'd know that I've done that most of my life. So, as I've said, I'll be continuing this investigation in search of answers. I'm not looking...
As you've said, then,
But-
you will, as I've said and made clear, your decision impacts us all, whether or not you could admit it.
And your
It's
decision
fine.
to treat everyone like an ass also impacts us all. So,
I'm not treating everyone as an ass. I'm having a discussion and bringing up
except
points.
every interaction you've had with Primarch has been combative the entire time since the day you met him, and I understand you're grieving, but so is
No, it's not about grief. He walks in here and he talks about, oh, Sven's ruined the honor of the family vest. Sven was a disappointment here. I'm fulfilling Sven's contract here because he couldn't do it. Fuck him. He didn't obviously know anything about his brother. And I guarantee you that based on the brotherhood that I had with Sven, I'm grieving more than he is right now. So
and I'm
don't
not questioning
don't.
that.
No,
But
you're starting
you-
to lecture. And I'm not going to hear it. And I'm not treating everyone like an ass, but I can start. If you value my input, I'll continue to give it. If not, I'll keep my mouth shut and be a good follower. You pick.
I always value your input. However, you seem to think that just because someone else's actions may impact you, they shouldn't take any action. I
Not
believe
at all.
Camus gave you the option to leave. You could leave completely from your hands, go back to your university, study all you want.
I'm simply pointing out that sometimes discretion is the better part of valor.
And
we're
that's
not
fine.
exercising discretion at all.
And sometimes ignoring things because they might make a bigger problem leads to bigger problems anyway.
We can go round and round. Obviously,
Exactly.
like I said, the choice is made. Let's make the best decisions we can going forward. And please, I'll deal with Primarch on my own.
And all I ask is that you find a way to do it without creating unnecessary confrontation.
The confrontation I created was quite necessary. Maybe he's wondering why I'm so hostile. And maybe I'll have that discussion with him at some point. And then maybe that'll do some good. If I just kissed his ass and treated him like a welcome member of the group, which he's not, in my opinion, then I wouldn't as easily get to the point A from the point B.
And I'm not sure that any of us have welcomed him as a member of the group, but we also haven't just dismissed him as unnecessary because he rubbed us the wrong way.
Sure, he's quite handy in a fight. Be happy to have him. Finally, somebody can heal us. Great. It's wonderful to have him. But I don't have to like the things that have come out of his pompous fucking mouth.
And that is entirely true, as I'm sure I've said things you don't like that I say. But
Not to that level. You're just you.
And he's
you
just
never-
him.
I chose to be with you.
No, you didn't. We were assigned to this group. You were forced to be with me.
I've already been given the choice to leave.
And you chose
Did
to
you-
stay, and I appreciate that. But the fact of the matter is, I would encourage you to have a conversation with Primarch and set aside your disdain for his culture,
No disdain for his culture, only his attitude.
which is a product of his culture. I'm sure that he has regrets in his life regarding how Sven was treated by his family. He hasn't directly stated so, but he has implied it. So perhaps you should start there, with your shared love of someone, rather than perceived slights. Because Sven was a brother you chose, and he was a brother that Primarch had whether he wanted it or not.
As usual. See the wisdom in your words.
And I'm not forcing you to do anything, I just ask that you sit down and talk with him. If you never want to talk with him, if you want to shove him out the door, go right ahead. But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't seem that he's leaving anytime. So find a way to make peace. Or at least a way to live around each other. Please.
As you wish.
Man, Thomas spends one day with Ava. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay. Is there a conclusion to that discussion, I guess I should ask? It sounds as if the party is continuing their directive to return to Messidore and pursue their investigation.
I mean, at this point, my plan is to get back to Messidore, have another, at least, debrief with Kira so he knows what we found, and compare notes with anything that he found, and then decide where to go from there.
Okay. All right. So, as the party bond on their way back to Messidore, arriving back home, I imagine, do you guys directly go to the Green Hood HQ, stopping by the guild hall? What's the chain of events?
So I don't trust Green Hood HQ right now. So
Mhm.
basically, it would be me writing a missive to Kirith of. Honestly, it would just be kind of the same sort of thing I've sent before. Hey, we're back in Macedore. If there's anything you would like to discuss, we're available. But without revealing too much.
Okay. One
Same sort of note that I wrote him when I was hoping to make our apology.
Okay. Let me just make sure. Today has been a day. Ugh. Okay, and then... All right. So, as the party returned to Messidore, mute your mic, and steer their direction towards the guild hall, there is perhaps a bit of understandable silence in the group as everyone is processing the conversation that had occurred, both the emotional discoveries and the veiled blade information that was tossed around as Brandon goes about sending his message and continuing onwards. As you make your way into what you now call home, I suppose, in Primarch, I imagine you're still attached to the group, whether you are preceding them or following them at a fair distance to maintain distance. As you step into the familiar halls, you are met with a strange sight. Three of you not really understanding what you are looking at until Primarch, you make your entrance, you see the individual standing in front of the counter, and immediately the pang of goes off in your mind, and you all would be met with...
Immediately, he goes to a knee and bows his head.
As you all step inside and Primarch falls to a knee, there is a golden dragon kind at the counter that was clearly conversing with Ayla, and as you make your entrance, he goes to turn. He is a rather large figure. He's probably 7 feet, maybe 7.5 feet tall, very much dominating the space that he takes up. He is dressed in a clearly very wealthy attire, but it is nothing super outlandish. It just covers him to his completion and gives him that kind of regal essence, I suppose. He is also, for those of you familiar, quote-unquote, with Dragonkind, is certainly a rather aged one. There is the lack of fresh budding scales, and a lot of his mane is turned into this almost like wingspan thing that somewhat resembles actual dragon wings to some extent that begin to develop in the later stages of Dragonkind's progression. As he looks you all over, his eyes would very distinctly go to Primarch as he hits a knee, and there would be a kind of strange moment of silence as his hands are kind of clasped in either fold of his cloaks. Well, son, I was told I would find you here.
My lord father, it is good to see you. And standing back up, goes to give a, short embrace.
He would, half return the gesture, as he doesn't really move or shift out of his somewhat dominant, posture that he's kind of taken up. As you have kind of finished the greeting, his eyes would turn back to the party at large, and if you would excuse me, I am going to retrieve my son from your clutches.
Father, what do you mean?
We shall speak once we are alone.
Pointing at Ayla. Ayla, is your conference room available?
Ayla, who looks absolutely terrified, to be clear. Kind of like peeks out from behind the large dragon-kind presence before you, and yeah, no one's up there. You can feel free to use it. And with the somewhat gentle offering, your father would turn and immediately beeline for the stairs, assuming that is the direction she is gesturing towards, and start marching his way upwards.
Turning to the group, gentlemen, if you'll excuse me. And preparing himself for battle, he marches up the stairs.
So, is there anything that the group does after this small event?
I'm gonna vanish.
I'm just gonna kind of settle down in the entrance. I'm only gonna give a glance to Thomas to just kind of get a sense for his current state and intention, but I'm not planning to interfere. Just
Blank face.
Brandon, as you take a seat in the common area, which Ava has been kind of perched on a couch during this whole encounter, she like waits for everyone to settle and then you to sit, and that's Sven's dad. Well, I guess it's also Primarch's dad. He's terrifying.
I assumed as honestly, I've met that yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna go listen.
No, you're gonna sit right there.
Aren't you curious?
Not curious enough to incur the wrath of 2 dragonkin.
What if I promise not to get caught?
Stay in your seat.
Ava. Come over here. There's a couple of books we need to look at.
Yes. You'd hop up.
So I'll go behind Ayla's desk and the one pertinent book on Tiefling kind that is in the library. We're here downstairs. We're gonna just start doing a brief study of, and I'll kind of walk her through some of the stuff that we had learned.
As clearly she had different readings of your offering than you, as you begin to pull the books out, she's like, okay, so you're gonna send Mr. Sparkles up there?
I'm gonna let them do whatever they want to do. We're gonna leave ourselves out of it. They're very good at ignoring us.
But that makes them so interesting.
They're not that interesting.
At least you tieflings are fucking crazy.
We are, aren't we?
So, Primarch, as you find yourself alone with your father for probably the first time in quite some time, the posturing that I suppose he had been doing down in the lobby does not fade at all as you step inside and the doors close, and he looks you up and down, partially with a paternal curiosity to make sure that you're not wounded or changed or disfigured in any way, but there's also this clear amount of judgment going on as his eyes eventually come back up to you. It's I have been hearing troubling news from the individual that runs this establishment.
Indeed, Father, as you know, Svenjamin did pass. Though, fear not, I did see to the funeral rites.
I know that you feel obligated, though it was unnecessary.
Father, I do not just feel obligated. Our family is obligated.
Do not speak of family to me. You know what you are doing to your mother.
If I am to take over the family, I will not leave another blemish upon our name.
You intend on clearing a blemish, but you'll create another one. You'll ruin everything that we have built, that we have designed for you, that we have established. And you threaten all of this for some individual.
It is principle. It is principle, Father. Unlike you, I did not seek the simple magistrate life. If we are to achieve true glory, honor for the clan, for the family name, we cannot simply sit idly by. It is our actions that must speak. I will not leave a contract unfulfilled. I will not leave an opportunity to gather greater glory.
You see his eyes darting down to the golden scale badge that adorns your chest, and there is this, like, visceral loathing that takes over his features as he is clearly, like, unsettled by this amount of pushback that he is receiving. You're so drunk on that god-forsaken golden scale, you chase glory like a fucking dog. Glory is feeding the masses, is keeping the fabric of society safe, and doing this administrative work that you are so averse to. It is not in bloodshed, it is not in slaying, it is not in clearing some slight or some contract that has been left unchecked by an unsavory character.
Father, the world has changed. We are all now one with Talora. The humans have entered into the fray now. We cannot squeak by, sitting back, signing forms. At least Svenjamin tried. Not much, but he tried. He got out there.
Svenjamin's efforts were nothing but for his own purpose. You think that I sit idly by and I do nothing. You have absolutely no comprehension of the various important tasks that fall upon me, that you seem so bitter towards. You have a bloodlust in you. And that's why you're here, and you're unwilling to admit it, and you're unwilling to face it.
Just as you were unwilling to raise him to be worthy. His
He had
failures
every
fall
chance.
on you.
And I suppose my failures are conjoined with yours as well, as you bring our name down to this muck yet again.
It is our family's honor at stake. And slightly quivering with his conviction, Svenjamin died honorably. I have heard the words of the people whose lives he has touched. If even he can achieve that much, imagine, Father, how much greater our house will become.
As you take a much more defensive position over Svenjamin, he begins to step towards you to the point that he is looming over you, his actual height just curved over your own, staring down almost like snout to snout, as you can like feel the heat, the draconic burning coming off of his breath, and there is this equal part of shaking from your emotional building, as it is clear that this is becoming more than he had been prepared for, and this is kind of his desperate last effort to actually make himself be heard. I do not say this lightly, and I do not say this as an idle threat, so you listen to me, and you listen good. I will not stand for this. I will not let you stand behind the lies and the honeyed words that others might slip in your ear about your degenerate brother, who we should not even be speaking the name of. When you want to claim honor for our house, your brother lost that a long time ago. If you are hell-bent to stay here, to follow his path, I will not stand in your way, but I will not call you my son.
Then a shame for the Sutek family, for they have lost 2 sons. And he will flip his cloak and about face and stomp his way out of the guild hall.
So, for those of you still within the building, unsure of where Quentin slipped off to, that would not be quiet by any means. That would be very easily heard, even though you are tucked away the common area. Primarch would go marching through. A few moments would pass before the other dragon kind that you bore witness to slowly descends the steps in a much more composed state. He would look at you all equally, nod his head, and sorry for the intrusion.
It's good to finally meet you.
Who might you be?
No one of any importance.
Not surprised.
That's not correct. And understanding that where you're from, I don't give a damn where you're in the house. It is kind for one to introduce themselves while in a stranger's home. I know who you are, but I don't know your name. I'm Brainun Drurenath. That is Thomas, your disowned son's best friend. I would kindly like to know your name so I can wish you your best back to Vehamantu.
Kinda has to visibly reserve himself from slipping back into the emotions he has just bottled up, and just takes a moment to kind of stare at you. Just this. You may address me as Karstan, if it pleases you.
Well, Sir Karstan, while I wish our meeting was under better terms, as I said, I do wish you your best back to, I assume, Vehamantu. And while you probably don't care, I wish to convey that it was an honor and a pleasure to serve besides Svenjamin. And my time with Primarch has been rather enjoyable as well. Have a pleasant evening.
Happy to hear your input. He would begin to leave, get like 3/4 of the way to the door, pause, look back over at Thomas and like look him up and down one more time. And then leave. I guess no better place to end the session.